Thank you. So yeah, my name is Mark Bowtell. I work in Swansea Bay University Health Board, and I'm Deputy Head of Rehab Engineering, and I'm the Training Officer in our department here. So just to acknowledge, I've given one of these really annoying titles that doesn't really say anything, and probably leaves you really disappointed at the end. So Drive to Thrive. I kind of done this a little bit from, thinking about how we best inspire our trainees and give them drive, or ensure they keep their drive. And then also, I guess, reflections on the importance of us keeping drive in our roles as well, and passions keep going. I'll reflect on at the end. I think I'm not sharing full screen, so I'm just going to hit that button. And hopefully you're still seeing me. Please shout if not.
We can see that. That's great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So just to start off and just tell you about how I started off as a training officer 10 years ago. And I think I've got to be honest and say, I think I got it wrong in many ways. Here's some reflections. I think I was just all about push. Let's try and push you, get you doing this, getting you doing this, achieve. And maybe I didn't get the balance right. And so we're going to talk about some merits of balance in a minute. But yeah, particularly when you make someone an expert in all things, you have to do it this way. I had to do it when I was a trainee, so suck it up and get on with it. And also just reflections on how we look at the competencies, and I think I sort of was trying to make sure everything was covered to the nth degree. Not against thoroughness, but I'm sure those of you who've got trainees will recognise that if we go too strongly down this road, we can have a trainee that is burnt out, disillusioned, uninspired, or otherwise unhappy. So here's some reflections about what some of the things we try to do more these days. And this is just talking about balance. So project driven greater than competency driven. So obviously we need to be achieving those competencies, but where we start is to look at what interesting projects are happening as a starting place, and then try and fit them with the competencies rather than the other way around. Obviously, there's times you need to switch that, but obviously it's about the win-wins, and that's where you see a really engaged trainees when they're doing something that's valuable. I think we all recognise that. The other thing is development opportunities is more important than the letter of the law. And just my final point there, remember why they're here and what it's about. Let's not lose sight of that. Making sure that we adapt and allow trainees to have depth in certain areas. Maybe they're not going to be brilliant in everything. Keep in mind the whole, and that's okay. And just because I'm conscious that the school might come down with me and some of these things, we need to make sure we're talking critically throughout and evidencing scientist thinking. So what else does balance look like? Structure versus flexibility. This is actually something that I think is quite hard to get right. Recognizing the need to drive some structure, else we get lost in endless loose ends. But obviously, flexibility is key within that, and come on to talking about the specific flexibility you might want for different trainees. And it's important that they don't feel constrained or stifled into something that they don't want to be doing, or it just doesn't seem like the stuff that's going to be useful for them. And finally on here, to give roles of responsibility. That was something that, I think it's too easy for us to hold back and say, oh, you need to do this before you do that. But, with the right sort of arm's length supervision, I think we can really see them taking on. That's where their leadership starts, is when we give them areas of responsibility. So I mentioned this, tailoring the activity. It really is important that trainees experience different experiences to each other, because they are different. And importantly as well, self-reflection here is that they should be different to me. We're not creating a bunch of mini-me's. If we're all about creating future me's, then I think we're missing the point a little bit. So hopefully they'll get bits and bobs from us as training officers and the other supervisors, but they're going to be creating their own future because they've got their own skills, attributes, interests, and learning styles. And so a key part that I started to understand in year one is to focus in and to work out, listen to them and understand where they're at, what they've got to bring, and where they might be going. I want you to learn more than I have to teach you. And hopefully through this, we've got resultant trainees that feel valued and inspired, not just inspired, but self-inspired. That leads me on to this one, talking about self-direction, which is obviously something that we talk a lot about when it comes to STP, and really is central that these trainees can self-direct themselves to some extent, because at the end of the day, let's recognize that there are things that we need to set them up with. And I've talked about this in terms of a platform, and helpfully all these things begin with a P. So we need to introduce them to people, places, projects, and proposals. And yeah, there might be trainees that don't take those opportunities and can't run with them. But I guess that's where we start to see those that will do well as a clinical scientist and those that won't. But how are they supposed to come in and know what the opportunities are? We're there to give them those opportunities and say, oh, you could try this, you could try that, and meet this person. How about this project? All those sort of things. And in the end, hopefully with that sort of springboard, a firm foundation opportunity, they can show themselves off. This is probably something that I've kind of worked hard on over the last few years as a culture in our department, is to have a sort of overall team approach to supervising trainees. So just encourage you, if you're sitting there on your own on this, and it's not always easy, is it, with we've all got different departments, different sizes, and whether you need to look outside the department more and invest in those networks. It's really worthwhile if you've got a team around you that can as well. Just find those other people that are interested in growing others and developing others and seeing the longer term gains that we get from those things. Because I think we can all agree that it is worthwhile if we put in the right sort of input. But the key thing is here that, like I said before, it's not about growing mini-me's. We want people to be getting a variety of input and training activities. One practical thing we do here is we've added into our weekly team meeting a slot about the trainees. So they update us what they're doing, rather than just being hidden in that back office and, they never come out and never, whatever else, this sort of rhetoric we had before. Now we know exactly what they're doing each week. They're visible. They're asking to be involved with these sort of things. So put your trainees front and center of your agendas. And I think we see dividends from that. I wanted to share with you, there is one thing practical in this. This is a little tool I use as part of sort of annual review, kind of a mentoring thing, I suppose. Just helping them to think about where they are now as a scientist, technician, and clinician, so they can put themselves somewhere on this triangle. Think about where they're coming in with expertise and experience, and then where they might be going. Where can we encourage you? Where do you want to be going? And I guess classically we would take in sort of people who have got in our case, an engineering degree, so they might have technical skills, might have done a bit of a third year project and understand a little bit of scientific method, but they're coming from the bottom left and moving up towards a little bit more of a scientist and certainly more of a clinician in terms of being comfortable in a patient-facing setting and all the stuff that comes with that. So yeah, I think the trainees value that, and it's also helpful, isn't it, looking at our own teams like in this lens, thinking about the skill mix and how we all have something different to offer. So that's just a little tool that I find useful. Then I got really background inspirational, thinking about things growing and thinking about how the early days of having a trainee is quite hard work, isn't it, for us as training officers? And we need to hold them up a bit more often. We need to constantly feed into them, and there's a fair bit of cost and maybe not that much gain in those early days. And then in the middle here, I just kind of reflected on what the environment looks like and compared that to what a tree or a plant needs. And so encouragement needs rich learning and wisdom from people around them. If you like, they're the nutrients of the soil. Rain is important. That's not always thought about, but exposure to real world challenges, bit of battering from the wind or whatever as well, isn't it? These things help growth. Space and air, particularly space in terms of a part to play. Where do I fit here? Is there space in this landscape for me and my expertise? And then air is kind of like the external influences that drive the things that might make them keep going when things are tough. So yeah, hopefully you can bear with me as I talk about bearing fruit, and in the end isn't it wonderful seeing the other end of it and seeing them sort of doing valuable roles in your department or going on to do other things elsewhere, and supporting our field and the development of what we do. Finally, from me then, just wanted to reflect how much I value being a training officer. And I think that's mainly just because we get this opportunity to interact with these sort of, I don't know, I was going to say fresh, but sort of every year we get a new trainee that teaches me different things, inspires me in different ways. And that's not just because I don't know how to use Teams anymore. There's various ways that I'm inspired, and some of them, the drive that they bring really keeps me driven. I heard it said a little while ago that being nice to people on your way up, but be nice to people on your way up because you might meet them on your way down. I think we can just change that a little bit to on their way up. I just feel passionate about supporting people as they developed, and these things come around, don't they? And finally, I mentioned the importance of our own drive, and I think this hit me. I can't remember what it was. Maybe in an interview recently. Am I still striving to make a difference in what I do? Are my core values still there as to why I do what I do? And if they're not, I suppose I need to recognise that I might be flattening the aspirations of others, and that's a bit of a cold thing to say, but hopefully the flip side is true for most of us, and these trainees keep us sharp, and I'm pleased to be involved with them year on year. That's it from me, and happy to have any reflections. Just a little quote that I thought was brilliant from one of my previous trainees, who obviously gets the idea of what we're doing, because she said that reflection is perfection.